This is a presentation about encouraging student self-evaluation in a clinical context. I've done this presentation in other contexts and want to acknowledge my co-presenter, Lauren Onkelos-Klein, who taught with me at American University and now is teaching at University of District of Columbia, and was very important in putting this together. Why should we care about student self-evaluation? Well, of course, we can look to many places as inspiration, not the least of which is the Carnegie Report, which talks about the need for students to be metacognitive about their work. Not only to learn things, but to understand how they learn and how they learn best. We spend a lot of time, I think, in clinical education trying to encourage students to do that and to understand how they can best figure out how to learn and extract meaning from experience. That's an important thing. Of course, you know in this audience that one of the reasons we need to care about student self-evaluation is because the ABA standards tell us so, and we always follow what the ABA says. One of the things in focusing about self-evaluation is to really distinguish between what we're trying to teach and what the students are learning, and thinking about learning as an iterative and a process that requires involvement and engagement on their part. So how do we do this in my school? We have 10 different clinics. The clinic in which we do this evaluation is the Disability Rights Law Clinic, which I direct and founded 13 years ago. It's a 2-semester clinic, 7 credits, it's graded. We have the classic seminar rounds and supervision structure. We take cases, primarily a range of cases, really almost everything we want: special education, ADA discrimination cases, alternatives to guardianship, some advanced planning. We don't do much in the way of benefits, a little bit with Medicaid, but mostly we try to do things in which clients are in a position of being autonomous or self-determined. Supervision is, of course, critical to any clinic, as it is with ours. The students meet with us. They work in teams of 2. They meet with each supervisor each week. They plan the meetings, and they are responsible for carrying out the steps in the case, and of course allows us to, as supervisors, to work with them. When we're talking about what we try to teach in clinic, one of the problems we have, or I think one of the problems the students have, is how much uncertainty operates within the different milieus in which they function. Certainly the uncertainty of legal practice, the uncertainty of skills, the uncertainty of learning, and we try to help them manage and cabin that uncertainty, and that, of course, relates very much to the importance of doing that for clients, because of client situations are necessarily messy and complex, as has been said. When I started this clinic, I thought, well, I should let the students know what I'm looking for. So I developed something. It was like a one-pager, or a criteria for evaluation. What am I like the 7 things that I thought were important: quality, level of work, creativity, responsibility, etc. But over time, that has evolved into something that now, in year 13, looks much more structured. We now have a kind of a rubric and a situation, a kind of a category of 11, or now 10 things that we look at and try to help students do their own assessment of how they're doing in these areas. Things like being reflective, collaborative, working with others, etc. And what we've tried to do was to move away from externally provided feedback. We certainly give a lot of that, but help the students develop their own skills and tools in order to evaluate their own work. And we thought that by emphasizing self-evaluation, we would help them to develop a common set of expectations between themselves in their partnership and us as supervisors, and that has seemed to work over time. We have seen the students are better at assessing their work. Instead of saying I did well or I didn't do well, they're giving more content. They understand also what it means to do well as a student lawyer, and ultimately what it might mean to do well as a lawyer. We think that, again, that has improved. We started out, and I would say this is, I'll take the full blame for this, that I think as the form over the years got more complicated, we added on things. You can see from this slide that we try to assess things like not just how good a writer are you, but did you craft good arguments? Did you respond to critique and feedback? One thing we've tried to do is to make it a little bit more straightforward, simpler. And so we've collapsed some of our criteria and tried to put things together where, again, we're looking to the student to ask and answer for the student themselves some of the questions that they might have about the quality of their work. We also changed a little bit the kind of feedback structure we provided. Originally, in the top part of this slide, you said we had criteria. We asked the student to assess themselves. They grade themselves very high, you'll be surprised to know. We asked them to give examples of things and then to give comments. Comments, though, by putting it off to the side, were kind of not as emphasized, so we switched it to really make it much more oriented toward narrative. And I have a couple of examples of some things students said about their work. One student talked about, we urged him to place himself in uncomfortable positions, and he did that, and I think he felt that he learned a lot from that. We have a student who said, look, I don't like getting feedback. I don't like being criticized. This is something you may have heard from your students. And it's, millennials seem particularly on that score. This is a student who, after a while, though, struggled with and said, I now know I need feedback. I know I need to respond to it. We had students who talked about, because we want to look at systemic understanding. People with disabilities face all kinds of situations that need to be addressed. And so students who said, I understood how to kind of link my understanding of the system with how to represent clients and help them do the things they need to do in their cases. And students were pretty good about talking about those things. Students talked about how the fact that the law in the books is not the same as the law in action, and that they need to understand uncertainty. They need to talk to clients in ways that are helpful to clients, not just, I think you got a 50-50 chance, which is not so helpful, or to promise results that they can't really achieve and can't be there. And so we want to give them that sense of that. So it's, we haven't done external evaluation of this. We think it works well. We hope it works well. It's a process that changes over time. Happy to talk more about it at the break with anyone who's interested. Thank you.